Welcome to Bits and Bobs,
the show where we bring you
tabletop gaming news and entertainment
from around the globe.
So grab a nice coffee and sit back.
And let us welcome you to our table.
Hello again. This is Fertessa, Allyse, and I am back again with Board Game Etiquette. This is the third segment, and this time I want to discuss how you can be a good host whenever you have people over to play games. Now, there are a lot of ways to be a great host. You can go into, the food you prepare and setting up an area, but the tips that I wanted to go over was more concerned with the people that are coming over to play those games with you. Something that I like to do now with my regular meetup group is I set aside 1 to 2 games that I want to play, one heavy, one light. So that I set the expectation that maybe only one game will be played for my pick. And that I'm prepared if it's an opener, something quick, or something that's going to be the meatier game that we're going to get through. Because there's 3 of us, and, we have a limit before it's time to kind of step away and call it a day. So a good thing is to, manage your own expectations of how many games are going to get played and what game of your choice is going to get played, because it's very important to share that with the people who are coming and allow them to also have input on what's going to get played. Sometimes the voting system is not going to work, and sometimes the voting system will, not be as satisfying. So I find that having that preset is a good start to a game day. Another thing that I find helpful is to also set the expectation that your game day may end an hour early or an hour late. So I try to make sure to schedule things so it's not tight one behind the other, so we don't feel rushed. But I also set the expectation that maybe one of us isn't feeling good. Maybe, it took everything to just come over and play the game, and, 1 or 2 games is all you have in you before you need to go. Because we're human and things happen and we have jobs and lives. So I don't want to feel disappointed and don't want other people to feel bad if we have to cut the game date early. So just set the expectation that it'll be fun however many games we get to. Another thing that I like to do is to look up the rules beforehand. Again, you never know how many games you're going to get through. And my group likes to explore at least having 1 or 2 new games out of the maybe 3 that we play. So if that's the case and your game is the one that's new, it's very good to go ahead and look up the rules so that you can navigate that to them and you can be teaching it to your friends rather than everybody learning all at once. I say that because everyone learns differently. And if you have someone who learns by touching the pieces and somebody who learns better by reading through the rules, front to back, it's going to be harder to get everyone on the same page. And it's going to take more time to play the game. So if it's possible, definitely try to look up the rules and understand the game beforehand so you can kind of be the moderator and teach people how to play that game. And the last thing is, you're there to play the games, but you are also there to enjoy the people you're playing with. So if somebody is not enjoying a game, cut it short. They say that to game designers all the time. If your game is flopping and you can see where it's broken, don't torture people, make them go through the whole thing. Cut it short. Same thing with published games. If it's not hitting with everybody, then it's fine to say, let's just play another round and then we'll put it up, try something else. So those are a few tips and I hope that they help. Thank you.
Yo, what's up, my friends? Am I recording in front of a wall of games like every other board game content creator? Yes. Will I continue to do this forever? I don't know, but I've been unpacking my games in my new house, and well, they're here, so whatever. Let's get on with this. Hey there, I'm Crystal Pisano from Board Game Blitz and the Dice Tower. In a previous segment that I have done on this very show, I talked about how we need to be careful and thoughtful about how we use the term gateway game. I think if we want our hobby to continue growing and being inclusive and welcoming to others, we have to be thoughtful about such things. So to that end, I'm going to expand on that topic a little bit and bring up something that I think is really important, and that is how we start a conversation with someone about board games. We've all been there. The person who says, oh, like Monopoly? You mean this game right here that I do own, and wow, this one's not in great condition, but it's here? Or what about this one? This is also Monopoly, and it's a little more fun than the one I just held up. But the point I'm trying to make is I think we've all, well, not all of us, but a lot of us in our gaming career have gotten to that point where our brains want to say, no, not like Monopoly. Because we don't like Monopoly as much as we used to, or even at all anymore. And that's not helpful. So I am going to steal something from beloved content creator Matthew Jude. In his very, very first segment he ever did on Board Game Breakfast on the Dice Tower for his dead last segment, he described a way to describe board games to people who aren't familiar with them, which I have literally been using for years, ever since he first introduced it to me. And now I'm going to introduce it to all of you. What is this magical description, you may ask? Well, let's say you're talking to someone and they don't know about hobby board games at all. And they ask you, okay, well, what's the name of a game you play? And the names of these games, they're not gonna help. They're not really gonna get you there. So here's how you describe modern board games to a non-gamer in a way that they can understand and will potentially get them intrigued in the hobby. Well, that's a good question, random coworker / friend / stranger at the grocery store. You know how video games back in the 70s were kind of simple, like Pong and Pac-Man, and they appealed to kids and adults, but more kids than adults, kind of. And now video games are complex and amazing, fantastical worlds that sometimes are made just for adults, and they're really interesting and story-driven and lots of fun. Well, in those few decades, board games have done the exact same thing as video games, but just less people know about it. And that's it. That's all you have to say. Even if people don't play video games, most people have a fundamental understanding of what video games are and how they work. So likening board games to video games is a really good mental comparison because they're similar in nature, but people are more familiar with video games. So if you want to get someone interested in the hobby, that is my suggestion for how to do it. I hope you all are having a wonderful week, a wonderful month. I know we're in a pandemic. Wonderful is pretty much, it's not the adjective I should be using, but honestly, I'm having a good month and I'm going to try and throw some of that energy toward you all. So thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.
Hi, today I want to talk to you about a few games that I would love to experience in a holodeck. So the holodeck kind of makes these alternate worlds that like are computer generated, but with like a full complete environment so you could hear, taste, touch, smell things. And so here are some games I would love to do in a holodeck with no real danger. So the first one is actually Mysterium. I think that would be so cool to like go to seances, talk to ghosts, and solve a cold case, like really cold. Like, oh man, I think that would just be so much fun. Kind of like getting these visions and things like that where you're like looking back into memories of the deceased and trying to figure things out. That's, sign me up. I'm in. Game number 2. Game number 2 is Paranormal Detectives. That one looked so fun. But again, it's also crime solving with ghosts, and I think you're going to see a theme here. But Paranormal Detectives looks like it would be fantastic fun to play in a holodeck. And I'm also kind of imagining in some version of some world somewhere that the holodeck also gives you these superpowers, because maybe I just want superpowers. That's game number 3. Yeah. Is going to be a little bit of a shift, and it's Chronicles of Crime. There was a Star Trek episode where, for a special break for Captain Picard, this is Next Generation, for a special break for Captain Picard, he got to go into the holodeck and like kind of replay like this old kind of noir gangster detective film. He gets to go in and be a detective and like find the mafia, and then like they end up getting onto the ship, and it's like one of my favorite Star Trek episodes because I was just like, oh, my dreams. And it was very much what I imagined like Chronicles of Crime would be like. Hopefully there would be no glitch in the holodeck and I wouldn't unleash a bunch of nefarious riffraffs into the world. Could you imagine how great of a training tool that would be if you're going to be detective? Anyway, I probably would never leave the holodeck, but those are 3 board games that I would like to be in an experience in a holodeck kind of fashion. What are games that you want to experience in a holodeck? I want to hear, I would love to talk more about this. So let me know in the comments. Bye.
Hello everyone, my name is Ilka Luza and I run the Twitch channel Luza Palooza, where you can play board games every night. Yes, that's right, every night. But today I want to talk about art. Art in board games and art in our lives. There's a quote that says, "Earth without art is just eh." And I think that is very, very true. Now, as you can see, I've surrounded myself with board games that I think are beautiful because of their artwork or because of their content or because of the mechanism they use. Imagine something like Sagrada. It would be a good game, but it would be a bunch of dice if you wouldn't know that it's about the stained glass windows. Also, I picked a recent example. Here's Greenville, here it is. A beautiful Dixit-like horror storytelling game, and the cards are just beautiful. They will be a pretty great base for you to talk with your fellow players, to have a discussion, to form a storyline. And there's a bunch of games like that out there that are beautiful that way. You may not know this about me, but I'm an actress and I am banned from work at the moment because of the pandemic. So my pledge is this: make art important. Flood the world with art. And you can do that in a bunch of ways. You can, of course, make donations. Theaters, galleries, museums, you name it, they will accept your donations gladly. But what you could also do is buy tickets in advance so that when theaters reopen, you will already have tickets. How awesome is that? You can, of course, support artists virtually. A lot of us have live streams or shows online that you can watch and that you can donate towards, and you could even watch a show. But what I think is the most beautiful way is just make arts more important with creating your own art. You can also do that in games. You can play something like Patchwork Doodle and make your own art. You could even play Cartographers, that's over here somewhere, and that will make beautiful art that you can put online. And if you do it, I ask you to use some of the hashtags that I've provided over here. Right there, right there, above the meeple. These are all hashtags that they're all German, as you can see, but we use them to draw more attention to the arts and to draw attention to the situation we're in at the moment. So I guess what I'm saying is, you are an artist yourself. Don't forget that. Art nourishes our souls and our minds, and it's super important, not only in board games. Thank you very much for listening. I'm Ilka Luza. Stay safe, play board games. Bye.
I'm the Cardboard Kid. In the nearly 6 years that I've been playing modern games and 3.5 years that I've been reviewing them, I've racked up over 1,500 plays. 1 billion times more amazing than that, and yes, I did the math, is how many memories I have because of them. It was very hard to choose just 5 for today's Bits and Bobs. Before that though, I'm going to plug my YouTube channel, The Cardboard Kid. In my reviews, I share stories from our plays. Grandma joined us for our 4th play frenemy pastry party. We all started well, but Mom soon was desperate for strawberries. After an eternity, one came out on Dad's turn. He took it, of course. You can trade, but it's called frenemy pastry party for a reason. She sweetly asked, "Do you have any strawberries?" Dad put his cards down and shook his head. She couldn't believe it. I saw you! You just took one! Me and Grandma cracked up so much. At Origins 2018, the 3 of us were walking around when we saw this wrestling card game advertised at a booth, the Super Show. Okay, this looks pretty cool, so me and Mom went over to play. After teaching us, they rang a real ring bell and did full commentary. When I pinned Mom, the ref slid across the table. 1, 2, 3. So cool. At Roxley's Foul Play 2018 event, we had already met Roberta Taylor, a local designer, when we played a prototype of another game together. In the evening, we both signed up to play in a Dice Zone Season 2 tournament. Despite random draws, we ended up paired together. It was a grudge match, and our game was still going on even after all the other games had completed. People gathered around and gasped when I unleashed a huge attack that brought her vampire lord down to 1 HP. On her turn, she hit me for just enough to knock me out. So close! I've twice lost to a vampire lord in a tournament. Next time, I'm playing as them. Earlier this year, I took advantage of being home and we got months ahead of our review schedule. We used that time to play some old favorites off of our game shelf. One of them, Timeline Challenge, is usually good for a few laps. It's like a game show where you bet when things were invented/discovered/made. The story in my review was before I knew what Return of the King was. I thought it and Purple Rain were over 750 years apart. A few months ago, Grandma joined us because it's one she knows and enjoys. One of the cards was The Appearance of Bees. Grandma said 1,000 years ago. We were like, you saw the exhibit at the Royal Tyrrell Museum with us. Later on, for breeding of the first Doberman, she said the 1970s. We all looked at her, and she was like, "Oh, right, my coworker had one." We couldn't breathe. We were laughing so hard. Grandma's best. Before the lockdown, we were at OrcaCon in Seattle. We played Just One with Beth Sobel and her family. If you're watching, hi Beth. She's one of the most amazing artists ever, and a wonderful person. Another friend, Tony Miller, joined us. He's a super sweet guy, a game designer, and we even share a birthday. On Mom's last turn, the clue was Empire State Building. I wrote important because I had heard of it, but wasn't 100% sure what it was. Everyone else's words canceled out. Mom opened her eyes, and I've never seen fear in someone's eyes like I saw that day. Her only hint was important. She was like, "How am I supposed to get this?" We were all laughing, and Beth mimed King Kong climbing up her husband, Daniel. Mom blinked, then said, "Empire State Building?" We all cheered and laughed. None of us could believe it. What a night. That's it for now. Post in the comments below what your favorite gaming moments are. They don't have to be funny and silly. I'll try to read and comment on them all. Bye!
Hello, I'm Sophie from Needy Cat Games, and today I want to talk to you about something that's really close to my heart because I am a sore loser, and it's something that I've worked really hard on to try and overcome because for me, I find it really hard, or at least I used to find it really hard to overcome that kind of feeling of disappointment or annoyance, and then that can really affect the enjoyment of everyone else in the game because they're worried about upsetting your feelings when they're winning amazingly well. So I've put a lot of work into trying to overcome those feelings and to try and process them in a really productive way so that everyone can still have a great time, including me, and that I don't let that ruin my own enjoyment as well. So I just want to pass on a few tips if you ever find yourself struggling with the same thing. So first thing is, well done for reflecting on your own reactions and responses, and realizing that maybe sometimes you don't have the best response in a game. That is really important, and it's worth thinking about how you enjoy games and what your responses are to those situations. And if sometimes you come up a bit wanting, then this might help you. So first point, well done for being in the same place as me and realizing that actually maybe sometimes your behavior in a game affects other people's enjoyment. Point 2 is take a breath. It can make such a big difference to just have that pause between a thing happening and you responding to it. So literally just a big breath can just help you have that moment to interrupt your emotions and your feelings and to consciously process them and choose to process them in a more positive way. And that's a big thing that I do in a lot of games. Point 3 is to say a neutral statement. If you need a bit more time to process, which is what I do a lot of the time, because I know consciously that I want to have a positive response, but I might emotionally respond quite negatively immediately, is I'll say something neutral to give me time to process that feeling. So I might say something like, oh, that's interesting, or oh, okay. And those aren't judgmental statements. They don't have a statement on like, oh, that's rubbish, or oh, I can't believe that again I've rolled a 1. Like they are just a neutral statement that again gives you that little few seconds to process what's happening and to then give yourself a moment to overcome that initial negative response. And point 4 is to just disengage for a moment. If you find yourself getting really frustrated, which I do sometimes if like multiple things go wrong in a row, then I can feel really like, oh, this is getting really annoying. And when I get into that headspace, it's really, really common for me to be like, no, I just want to get this done. I just want to roll that 6. That's all I want to do. And then you keep pushing through and being determined to complete the thing. And actually what happens is you just get more and more negative and more stressed. So if you catch yourself doing that, like I do quite often, then the best thing to do is just go and make a cup of tea. Or if you're, on like a Zoom call or something, then you can just be like, oh, just a minute, I've just got to check on the dog, or whatever it is that you need to do. Just literally walk away for even 15 seconds, just do something else. And that makes such a difference to your mood, to the way that you approach the game. It can give you just that breather to break that behavior and to come back with a renewed vigor. And my final point is just to try and give yourself a different objective. If you realize that you're doomed and you're definitely not going to win, then try and give yourself a new objective. Now that might just be have as much fun as possible. It might be, yeah, I might not have completed the main objective, but I'm definitely going to build this city, and that's what I'm going to focus on, and that is going to be a win in my book if I manage to do that thing. And if you give yourself a new objective, it can really help you guide your decision making. Again, if you feel like you've got no chance of winning, then guiding your decision making in a new objective will give you a framework to like put all your decisions onto, so that everyone else in the game might think that you're being a bit unpredictable, or it might be quite fun and you can take the mick out of yourself a bit more because you're like, I don't care about anything else, I just need to claim this new territory, and that's the thing I'm doing. And then that becomes a thing which gives everyone around the table a focus as well as you. So there's my tips on how to disengage and try and overcome being a sore loser. And an additional point, these things are actually really useful as well if you're someone who does game design like myself, and taking feedback that's quite hard from playtesters. These are the same techniques that I use because I do have an emotional reaction to that sometimes. When someone says, this is terrible, or it just doesn't work, or I didn't find it fun, I have that initial response again of like, oh, I'm getting stressed and I feel bad. Again, same tips can really help, making neutral statements, taking a breath, disengaging for a few seconds, coming up with a new way of overcoming that and thinking, okay, well, if the game's broken, maybe we just test movement. Those things can really help in that context as well. So I really hope that this has been useful to some of you. And if you do have a friend who you play with who maybe exhibits this stuff, then maybe you can encourage them to think about that and just take a moment, or ask them to make you a cup of tea, just to sort of break that mood and try and reset. All right, thanks.
Hey there, friends out on the internet. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Julie, and we're here to tell you about what's coming up this month on You're Invited. So there are some topics, people. we have some stuff. We started with the light overview, easing you in, but now we're starting to dig a little deeper. So this month, we've got everything from making prototypes to finding playtesters for your design. So what do you got for us, Rachael?
I am totally excited. I cannot wait to get into the nitty-gritty of operations. We have great tips coming on how to track progress on playtesting designs, game making itself, trying to figure out components and whether or not you should make an in-office prototype or outsource to a no minimum manufacturer. So lots of things to talk about.
Yeah.
What's on your mind?
Well, you covered a lot of what we're going to go over, but I'm looking to the end of the month. And one of the biggest things for us is Black Friday. So I can tell you that if you're in retail, any sales for your games should have already been communicated by now to mass market, to distribution, to brick and mortar stores. And so if you are watching our actual show when we get there to it at the end of the month on Black Friday, we're really setting you up for next year because that ship has sailed. But what you can do right now is make sure you're starting to advertise your holiday sales for your online stores, as well as promote any sales that you did set up for online sales through Amazon or for retailers. So also remember to make sure to maximize your newsletter, send out a flyer, and everybody else is going to be doing the same. So make sure you make it unique, stand out, make it fun.
I just saw a little bit of Teacher Julie coming out right there.
A little bit.
Yes. So while we're working on our online flyers, you guys should be looking for us on Friday mornings at 10:30 Eastern.
Follow us on Facebook, tune into our shenanigans, and remember, you're invited.
Hi everyone, this is Luna from Ask Gamer Girl, and today we are going to talk about the perception of girls or women at board game spaces, events or stores, and more when they are with their partner. First off, do not assume that a girl in a board game space is there because of their partner. So this happened a few weeks ago. I went to one of my favorite game stores, but before I tell you what happened, let me give you a little bit of context. So if my husband was to go to a board game store by himself, he will end up buying 0 to 1 game and most likely 0. If I was to go to a game store by myself, I will end up buying 5 to 7 games, most likely 7. And if we are together, we kind of go for 3 to 4 games. As you can tell, I am more into board games than he is. So we were at the store and I had a pile of games on me. And while an employee was walking by, I asked them a question about a game. And the answer was redirect towards my partner. Yay, not me. This is not the first time that something like this has happened to me. Usually when I go for the first time to a board game event or meetup, I take my husband with me because I'm not really good at engaging with the strangers and more in big groups. And often people assume that I'm there because of him, when in reality he is there because of me. And it's not until I kick their asses while playing games that they realize I am the one into board games. So one of the reasons why I like board games is because when I play them with other people, I don't feel invisible and I feel like a part of a community. But when things like this happen, it makes me feel invisible again, like if I don't belong. And at the end of the day, board games are not about gender or race. They're there for everyone, and that is the beauty of it. That no matter your context or background, there is always a board game there for you. So yeah, remember, this is Luna from Ask Gamer Girl. See you next time.
Hey everyone, today I wanted to talk to you about something that's board game adjacent, but in another wheelhouse, another thing that I really like to do, and that's interior design. So one of the fun things about moving as often as we do is I get to kind of reorganize and redecorate spaces all the time. What I want to talk to you specifically today about is board game rooms. This is something in our house that gets a little neglected. Hobby spaces in general have a tendency to be maybe a little less organized because you don't expect folks to see them, or maybe you just have a lot of things that it's hard to put up or figure out how to make look pretty. I think board game spaces in particular are interesting because a lot of us don't have a dedicated board game space. So we're usually using something like a dining room or a living room as our board game space, and so it's got to serve double duty. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about how to use those spaces double duty, how to Create a space that is not only functional for gaming, for hobbies, but is also pretty and you're okay with anyone walking into your house and seeing. Let's start with shelves. Now, we've all seen the Kallax that a lot of gamers use for their rooms, and that's fine. It seems to fit most of the boxes pretty well, and if you want everything to have a very static or organized look, then those are great. But you don't just have to use Kallax. You can use open shelving. You could use wall shelving even if you wanted to and made sure it was secured properly to the wall. I happen to like open shelving myself because it helps the room not look as heavy or as cluttered. Additionally, when you're shelving your games, you don't have to put them all the same direction or the same way. I know there's a lot of discussion about whether or not they should be vertical or horizontal, but also, do you want to have some face front? We do enjoy these games. We buy them because we like them, and some of them have amazing art, so why not use that as part of the decor? There are game tables aplenty, and there are also plenty of people who are using a dining room table or a large desk to game on. Your surface needs is to be a surface. It needs to be clean, it needs to be large enough for whatever you're playing, and that's pretty much it. So for a table, my biggest recommendation is just make sure you keep it cleaned off. Make sure that the kids or whoever else is part of your household knows not to pile things on top of it, and then you'll always have a surface available to play on. I love having an additional flat space in the room. There are so many games now that include apps or things that you might need to pull up on your laptop. Even if you just want to have the ability to look up a rule real quick on BGG, having the additional desk nearby to utilize is great. Many of us are kind of stuck with whatever lighting the room happens to have, particularly if it's an overhead. But if you need additional, or if you need to add something to the room anyway, torch lights are fantastic. They put off a lot of light and they aren't directly facing the tabletop, so they eliminate glare. Even if you have good overhead light or have a few torch lights that you think work fine, having an additional lamp or two for late night gaming or games that need an additional little bit of light so that people can see more clearly is always a good idea. Something I want to stress here is that I'm not advocating going and buying a whole new kit for your board game room. I mean, you can if you want to, but most of us can't. So get creative with what you already have in your house. A lot of the shelves here that you see I already had, they were just being used for my books. The table is the old one the kids had in their original playroom. The bench that we're gonna feature not only used to be part of the footrest for my sofa, but actually holds a lot of my outdoor cushions and stuff for when I'm outside. Think about dual purposing not just the room, but the things that you already have in your house in order to kind of kit out the room. Most of us are having a lot of our rooms do double duty, particularly now when we're working from home or doing school from home. So having something that can act as a room divider, hide a certain section that maybe you don't want to see all the time. I like this screen in this area in particular because not only is it beautiful as a decorative piece, when we swing the desk out so one of our kids can use it as their school from home space, the room still looks pretty. We all have a ton of extra board game things, right? Those items usually kind of get abandoned on a shelf or just shoved someplace and end up making things look a little bit cluttered. So I suggest grabbing something to put them all in, whether or not it's a pretty basket or a glass jar. Extra seating never hurt anyone. Now, having a few chairs here and there in the garage is one thing. Maybe you've got some folding chairs, but sticking the extras from maybe your dining room set in a corner, prettying them up with something, not only make them part of the decor, but make them easily accessible when you need them. I also am an enormous advocate of having pillows around. Long time late night gaming sessions usually mean our backs or bottoms are a little achy, and so having a little cushion is helpful. Don't be afraid to put a little bit of your own decor and style into the room. Just because it's the game room doesn't mean it has to be 100% games. Add some family photos, add a pretty vase you really like, whatever it is that you would use in other places of your house to kind of add a little bit of personality or make you happy, put that in your game room too. Ultimately, the purpose here is to make the game room both something that's functional and easy to play in, but also a room that you feel good in, that reflects your aesthetic or just makes you happy to be in because it's well organized and pretty and reflects you. So that's it. We've got a functional dining room that we can use to eat or have folks over whenever we can have folks over again, but is also useful and well set up for board gaming. I hope that gives you a few ideas. If you have any ideas or tips, I'd love to see them below in the comments. And if you have any questions, shoot me a message or ask it below. I would be glad to talk about it. Talk to you soon. Bye.